Hey everyone! Lynx here, and welcome to my first episode of Nocturnal Grimoire, where I'm going to take you into the darker, the spookier, and plain old darkness of magic and witchcraft. So today's topic, I'm actually going to take you into one of my favorite Sabbats, or holidays. I'm going to talk about Samhain, or Samhain, or Samhain. There's like a billion ways to say it, but most people would actually recognize it as Halloween. Now, Samhain actually is roughly translated from meaning for summer's end. So this is basically the time of the year when, well, summer is over, and we know it's over, and winter's coming. Mostly for the fact that it gets cold. This is also, to most witches, the witches' New Year. Part of this actually originally came about from the Celtic belief of each new day starts at sundown, and each Sabbat, or holiday festival, begins on the eve of the day that it's celebrated on. Which also has the concept of, so does the year begin with the coming of winter. So the approach of winter starts the year, and the ending of summer ends the year. So that's why us witches actually kind of look at Samhain as the new year. It's also kind of our Thanksgiving, if you will, because it's also the third and final harvest festival holiday. This is where, back in the day, people would store their foods, get the last of their produce out of the gardens and the fields and crops. They would bring down their cattle from the mountains and put them into the winter pastures. They would slay the livestock that is going to be used for the meat for the coming winter. This is all the time when literally you wanted to bunker down with your food and have it last through the winter. During this time, it's also a time of the crone, and also the time of, well, as some people say, the Day of the Dead. Or how I like to see it as when the world of the unseen and the world of the seen start to blend. Making it where some people call it the thinning of the veil. Because what we cannot see is hidden from us, and what we can see isn't. So the thinning of the veil means that the veil is kind of coming off our eyes. So, in a sense, letting us see what we can't see. Now, this probably originated, maybe, from the ideas and the beliefs of the coming of winter as a time for fear and death, because a lot of people back in the day got sick around this time, and it was really hard to make it through the winter unless you had enough supplies, such as food and meats and warmth. Another concept is the idea of an early frost being an ill omen, which actually, an early frost back in the days was actually considered the idea of us otherworldly spirits' breath going across the crops or fields, as a sign of mischief and an ill omen, saying that the coming winter is upon us. Now, this time back then wasn't actually, we weren't able to really predict the idea of how the winter is going to turn out, meaning that the temperatures could get really, really low really, really fast and we wouldn't know. Unlike today, where we actually kind of know a little bit and can actually predict whether or not this winter is going to be too cold or moderate throughout the winter. Now, during this time, the ideas of fairies and everything of the unseen world was able to cross over into our world a lot easier because of the thinning of the veil. To some people, it won't mean much, but to witches and other paranormal type people, actually kind of see it as kind of a fun blessing, because this is the time where we can actually interact with fairies and gods and goddesses and spirits of the dead a lot easier than we can do on other times of the year. But because of this belief back in the day of fairies and stuff being able to come into this world, it was also a time of fear. Why? Because fairies have a tendency to be mischievous and love to abduct little children or adults and kind of take them away into the unseen world, or the Summerlands, as some people call it. Now, this is actually where we got some of our fun little traditions that we have nowadays for Halloween. Now, some of these traditions are like the jack-o'-lantern or dressing up in costumes. Now, the jack-o'-lantern, which I honestly don't have a pumpkin that's carved, mostly for the fact that I carved my pumpkin with my niece and she took it. Anyway, the jack-o'-lantern was actually originally an idea of a welcoming beacon and also a protection charm. Why? Because it being the Day of the Dead, the light from the jack-o'-lantern was actually a beacon to friendly spirits and stuff to enter your home, as the face itself, the scary face, was actually a protection or a warning to basically scare not so friendly spirits away from your home. So it was like in a sense, it's a welcoming beacon and a protection, and that's why they carved it back in the day. Today, it's now just for fun, and also, in some ways, still used as a protection beacon, a protection charm, and a welcoming beacon. The other thing is the idea of dressing up in costumes. Ooh. So, dressing up in costumes was actually considered a form of guising, which back in the day was meant to help hide children. Sorry, this is a little bit more difficult than I was hoping. To hide children from the spirits or fairies, because it was a sign of, because basically you hide yourself. Now, this was actually to help them travel through the streets and get from place to place without being abducted, so to say, from fairies or other spirits that aren't so friendly. During this time, we also have the trick-or-treating come into play. The idea of going door to door. Sorry guys, my camera stopped on me. Anyway, the idea of trick-or-treating was originally the idea of going house to house to gain candies, foods, sweets, basically kind of anything. But the idea wasn't just knocking on the door and saying trick-or-treat. The idea was actually knocking on a door and doing a performance, which normally is like reciting a poem or singing a song that you remembered that you were going to actually go and do house to house. Trick-or-treating throughout the night really was, the more elaborate you do, the better the outcome, or better the gift you get from the people that you actually performed for. Now, those are more of the traditional kind of things that we see in Halloween. But with Samhain, there's some other things that we actually like to do. Some of the more witchier kind of magic stuff, like this being the best time to do divination work, or basically tarot reading, or looking into the crystal ball. Now, it's not fully exactly what they used to do back in the day during this time. What they actually used to do is actually peel an apple, and then toss the peel over their shoulder. Whatever the shape formed was actually going to most likely be the starting letter of their future lover's name. Now, this has variations on how you can do it nowadays, and also probably how you used to do it back then. Another concept is actually using nuts as a form of divination, on using the nuts and roasting them in the fire. Using the nuts and how they crack or pop, or seeing which ones do which, using that as a form of divination. Other divination tools that are commonly used, especially nowadays, are tarot cards, crystal balls, runes, all sorts of things. But this is normally the time of the year where we actually really go into using our divination tools as a form of kind of seeing what the new year is going to be holding for us. Other things that some major rituals or spells that we kind of do are things for like out with the old and in with the new. Basically going and saying, my past is behind me, I want to leave my baggage there, leave it there, bring in new blessings, bring in new basically just bring in the new and celebrate the fact that the new year is coming. This is also a time of celebration and also paying respects towards the dead. So this was also a good time to also do rituals of health and blessings basically throughout the winter. Some people don't like the winter, some people do. Me. This is to help kind of fight off sicknesses and basically bring blessings of basically joy and happiness throughout this winter, because winter can be a little depressing, and also you can get sick really easy in winter because of the cold. Some of the major magical energies that actually reside during Samhain is the goddess Hecate is very, very well known within this day, because the fact that she is actually, Samhain literally is the day of the time of the crone, which is the elderly woman who has great wisdom, and Hecate literally is the goddess of wisdom. She is the keeper of wisdom. She is the teller of wisdom. She is literally everything wisdom. She literally is wisdom. Hecate is also a dark mother, which is why I love the concept of her being a major deity during this time, because she is a dark being. Her symbol is the tri-moon, which is the crescent on both sides of the full moon, because she represents the mother, maiden, and crone. This time of year, she's actually the crone, which is the older woman, which is the keeper of wisdom. Also during this time, we actually are in the astrological signs of the Scorpio, which has a major reign over passions and desires. Okay, so that's it for my episode of Nocturnal Grimoire. Check me out next week. Hopefully I will have a new video up for you. And I'll talk to you then. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Blessed be.